Good morning, everyone. We hope you had a great time with the video learning series so far. Today, I, Prasad Kulkarni, is going to help you to clear the concepts regarding nutrition and enteral nutrition. We are sure this video will help you to understand the therapy clearly and completely.
Today, we will be learning about the basics of nutrition. What is a nutrient? A nutrient is a substance in the food that helps to maintain our body, provides us energy, and helps to build the cells and tissues of our body. There are 6 different types of nutrients available, which serves the 3 major functions, that is, providing the energy, building and repairing body cells, and the regulation of body functions. The 6 different types of nutrients are carbohydrates, fats, proteins, vitamins, minerals, and water. As you can see that carbohydrates, fats, and proteins helps us to provide energy. Protein is a alone nutrient which helps in the repair of body cells, whereas vitamins, minerals, and water help to regulate the body functions. There is no single food which supplies all the nutrients the body needs to function. Energy providing nutrients. The energy that we get from the food we eat is measured in the form of calories. Similarly, kilocalories is also the unit of energy which is used synonymously. In order to stay healthy and fit, one must consume a balanced meal. A balanced meal is a meal in which macronutrients and micronutrients are present in a desired proportion. In a balanced meal, the carbohydrate content is around 55 to 60%. The fat content is around 30% and the protein content is around 10 to 15%. Carbohydrates provide us 4 kilocalories per gram of energy. Similarly, proteins also provide us 4 kilocalories per gram of energy, whereas fats provide us maximum 9 kilocalories per gram of energy. What are proteins? During our school days, we had studied that proteins are building blocks of our body. But what is the science behind proteins? Let's understand it. Proteins are large complex molecules composed of amino acids. Proteins are long chain amino acids which are joined together by peptide bonds. And in nature, there are 20 different amino acids which are used to make proteins. Amino acids are categorized into two groups, essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. Essential amino acids are the ones which must be consumed through the diet because our body cannot synthesize them, whereas non-essential amino acids are the ones which are synthesized in our body. Essential amino acids has three branch amino acids. They are leucine, isoleucine, and valine. They are also called as BCAAs. BCAAs are important for developing or building muscles. What is the role of proteins in our body? The primary role of proteins is cell growth, repair, and maintenance. Also, proteins helps to develop antibodies to protect against diseases. And lastly, proteins serve as an important energy source. We know that proteins are important for cell growth and development, but for proper growth and development of tissues and cells, the protein quality also matters. Here, let's study about the protein quality. The quality of protein is measured in the form of PDCAS, that is protein digestibility corrected amino acid score. The highest possible score is 1, which means the protein with PDCAS value of 1 is the best quality of protein. Moving ahead to fatty acids. There are 3 different types of fatty acids: saturated fatty acids, monounsaturated fatty acids, that is MUFA, and polyunsaturated fatty acids, that is PUFA. Polyunsaturated fatty acids include omega 3 and omega 6 fatty acids, which are very essential for our body but are not synthesized in our body. The different functions of fats include the source of energy, that is 9 kilocalories per gram of energy is provided by fats. It spares the protein for tissue binding, it acts as an heat insulator, protects organs, and fats are important components of cell. Carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are the primary source of energy to human beings as well as all the living beings. Carbohydrates are divided into four groups: monosaccharides, disaccharides, oligosaccharides, and polysaccharides. Monosaccharides include glucose, fructose, galactose. Disaccharides include sucrose, lactose, maltose. Oligosaccharides include corn syrup. Polysaccharides include starch, dextrin, maltodextrin, cellulose. As we all know that the function of carbohydrates is providing energy. They are stored as glycogen as a potential energy source. They provide 4 kilocalories per gram of energy and spares protein for tissue. In functions of carbohydrates and fats, we read that they help to spare the proteins for tissue building. What is this protein sparing principle? The principle says that carbohydrates and fat should only be the source of energy or the source of calories for the body. As a result, carbohydrates and fats will help to spare proteins from energy utilization, and therefore proteins will only be used for repair and development of cells and tissues. For this, the carbohydrate to protein ratio must be 4:1 for protein sparing.
Vitamins. Vitamins are organic compounds that are found in plants and animals and which are essential for our health. There are two types of vitamins: fat soluble vitamins and water soluble vitamins. Vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K are fat soluble vitamins, whereas vitamin C and vitamin B complex are water soluble vitamins. Vitamin A is essential for development of immunity as well as visions. Vitamin D helps in calcium absorption, nerve and muscle function. Vitamin E acts as an antioxidant. Vitamin K helps in bone formation and blood coagulation. Vitamin C helps in iron absorption, acts as an antioxidant, and helps in collagen synthesis. Vitamin B complex helps in RBC formation, nerve function, and metabolism of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats.
Minerals are inorganic compounds that are found in plants and animals. The major mineral requirement for humans are calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, sodium, potassium, chloride, and sulfur, whereas some minerals which are required in trace are iron, zinc, copper, fluoride, selenium, iodine, chromium, manganese, and molybdenum. Iron is essential for hemoglobin formation in RBCs and helps in cognitive functions. Calcium is a skeletal mineral in bone and teeth, helps in muscle contraction and nerve function. Zinc helps in growth and development, the immune response, the neurological function, and in reproduction. Magnesium is a bone helps in bone mineralization, muscle contraction, enzymatic reactions, protein synthesis. Selenium acts as an antioxidant, whereas sodium and potassium maintain the water electrolyte. Let's understand the world of peptides.
We know that proteins are the building blocks of our body. They help our muscles and tissues to grow. Also, they give a good structure to our body. But choosing a right protein from a right source is equally important.
The vegetarian source proteins are of two types: soy protein and milk protein. Milk protein is further divided into two categories: casein protein and whey protein. In milk, around 75% of protein is casein, whereas only 25% of protein is whey. The casein protein found in milk protein is digested and absorbed slowly. As a result, the gastric emptying time is increased, and hence there are more chances of regurgitation, whereas whey protein is digested and absorbed quite faster than casein protein, and the gastric emptying time is very low. Therefore, there are less chances of regurgitation. Whey protein is a rich source of all essential amino acids and also branch chain amino acids like leucine, isoleucine, and valine. It is also a rich source of glutamine and cysteine. Whey peptides are digested and absorbed faster as compared to proteins as well as free amino acids. Peptides are easily digestible as compared to intact proteins, and also the absorption is carried out without digestion. and as compared to amino acids, peptides are absorbed at higher rates. The whey peptides can be absorbed within 10 to 30 minutes. The utilization of whey peptides is better than intact proteins. The utilization of proteins is determined by how much amount of nitrogen is retained in the body. The feeding small quantities of peptides results in higher nitrogen retention as compared to free amino acids. Whey peptides have low osmolality. As a result, they also undergo less adverse events. The number of nutrient molecules in a solution define its osmolality. Ideally, the oral feed should have similar osmolality to that of plasma. Higher osmolality feeds causes dragging of water into gastrointestinal tract from the system to dilute the feed, which can also lead to diarrhea. Whey protein hydrolysates possess low osmolarity, which is around 300 to 500 milliosmoles per kilogram, compared to free amino acids, which is more than 500 milliosmoles per kilogram. As a result, whey peptides are well tolerated compared to free amino acids. So what are the benefits of whey peptides? Let's revise it again. Whey peptides are better digested, absorbed and utilized as compared to intact proteins. They are a rich source of all essential as well as non-essential amino acids including BCAAs, that is branch chain amino acids. Whey peptides have highest PDCAAS value and therefore it is regarded as best quality protein. Whey peptides are also safe for GI. They are lactose free, gluten free and also have low osmolality. What is the role of clinical nutrition in critical illness? When a person is critically ill, he undergoes two problems. First, his illness, and second, his nutritional deficiency. There are more than 150 studies around the world that have shown that up to 50% of critically ill patients show signs of nutritional deficiency during their critical illness. As many as 65% of elders in hospital are nutritionally deficient. The nutritional deficiency can lead to longer hospitality stays, higher healthcare costs, increased morbidity and mortality. Malnourished patients cope poorly with modern medical and surgical inventions, and on average, the stay in hospital is approximately 5 days longer than the normally nourished, incurring approximately 50% of higher cost. So how does this nutritional deficiency occurs in critically ill patients? Critical illness can be of any type, that is burns, sepsis, trauma, surgery, cancer, AIDS, accident, and it can lead to starvation in critical illness or excessive nutrition loss. During critical illness, it is difficult for a patient to chew, swallow, digest and absorb the food. Also, the patient may have to take n number of medicines. As a result, there can be a drug-induced or disease-induced anorexia. The person may have a feeling of nausea or vomiting. In some cases, there are medical or surgical requirements that the person has to stay without any food or water. In some cases, the person is uncooperative, which can lead to starvation in critical illness. The reason for excessive loss of nutrition can also be bleeding, diarrhea, vomiting, etc. Also, it can be higher metabolism rate. The body responses to diseases, process, surgeries, trauma. In nutritional deficient status, body uses its own stores to meet the nutritional demands, which increases the metabolism. In critical illness, there are high caloric requirements for human body in order to serve it as a fuel for immune cells and also to carry out processes like wound healing and repair mechanisms. Let's understand clinical nutrition. There are two routes of administering clinical nutrition: enteral feeding and parenteral feeding. Enteral feeding is feeding nutritional orally by mouth or through a tube, which is divided into three categories, that is oral, food given through mouth, second gastric, and third duodenal or jejunal. Gastric and duodenal are included in tube feeding. The second route of administration is parenteral, that is, the nutrition is provided intravenously. As you can see, over the years, the importance of enteral nutrition has increased over parenteral nutrition. There are different sites of administering enteral nutrition. The first one is mouth. The next is nasoenteric routes. Nasoenteric routes is divided into three categories depending upon the tube insertion. In nasogastric, the tube is inserted from nose which ends in stomach. In nasoduodenal, the tube is inserted from nose which ends at the duodenum sternum, which is the end of the stomach. Whereas in nasojejunal, the tube is inserted from nose and ends in intestine. The next is cervical phagostomy or esophagostomy. In this, the tube is inserted from pharynx. The next is PEG, that is percutaneous endoscopic gastrostomy. PEG is given directly, the tube is inserted directly from the skin into the stomach. And the last one is jejuxtomy, that is the tube is directly inserted from skin to intestine. So what are the benefits of enteral nutrition? The most important benefit is it increases the blood flow to the gut because our immunity resides in the gut. The next is it maintains the mucosal and gut integrity. It has better nutrient use with fewer metabolic disturbances and complications than TPN, that is total parenteral nutrition. It promotes gut motility. It supports the immune system and it is more cost effective than total parenteral nutrition.
This was all about the basics of nutrition and the role of nutrition in critical illness. In the next video, we would be understanding one of the best brands of enteral nutrition therapy, CritiPro. Till then, have a good day ahead.